Unbelievable surprise. On my 74th birthday, my daughter-in-law revealed an eviction notice. Betty stood surrounded by the joyful cacophony of her family. The blue and yellow streamers adorned her living room, and a table overflowed with laughter, photographs, and cakes, her handmade blueberry pie resting proudly in the center. As she listened to the sweet treble of her grandchildren's giggles, her heart felt as though it might burst. This place, her home, was a tapestry woven from years of love and effort, each thread carefully spun from memories, but there, at the periphery, stood Lisa, her daughter-in-law, profoundly still as the merriment swirled around her. The knot tightening in Betty's stomach made her uneasy. Something was brewing in the air, something that threatened to mar the perfect day. While everyone embraced the warmth of the moment, a chill dipped through Betty's veins when she caught Lisa's anxious gaze. Was she imagining it, or was there a heaviness weighing down Lisa's smile? Time for candles. Her son, Mike, declared, and the upbeat energy surged once more. Laughter melded with an off-key rendition of Happy Birthday. As they sang, Betty closed her eyes, feeling the love envelop her. But the warmth was suddenly pierced by the sound of shuffling. When she opened her eyes, Lisa was stepping forward, trembling hands clutching an envelope that glinted oddly against the cheerful chaos. Lisa cleared her throat, the sound slicing through the melody like glass. "I have something to share," she stammered, and the room felt a collective intake of breath. Betty's heart dropped, a quick flash of dread flared. She couldn't shake the feeling that this day, radiant despite its flaws, was about to be cracked wide open. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As if paralyzed, the air stilled again as Lisa intoned the words that would rip through the fabric of the gathering. "It's an eviction notice," she blurted out. The laughter stopped short, replaced by a disapproving silence, each face frozen in time. The cheerful decorations morphed into garish symbols of the storm brewing just beyond the horizon. Betty's mind raced, outrage mixing with disbelief. This wasn't just a legal document, it felt like an accusation wrapped in betrayal. Her life's work sacrifices made for their future reduced to a transaction. Lisa's motivations swam through her thoughts, each one more unsettling than the last. Was her success more important than family ties? The certainty that had once buoyed Betty, enveloped in love and purpose, began to fray. It seemed they now stood on opposite sides of a chasm, a canyon carved by ambition and betrayal. Beneath the clamoring disbelief, something deep within Betty stirred. This powerhouse of resilience yearned to confront these tangled emotions raging inside her. Could family bonds withstand the mere existence of a piece of paper? The afternoon sun, once warm and inviting, now felt harsh, illuminating tear-streaked faces and shadowed glances. Betty sensed the shift. Uncertainty weighed heavy on her heart. The warmth of the joyful gathering was eclipsed by a chilling reality. After so many years, this was not just a birthday, it had become the battlefield where loyalty and ambition collided. How would she navigate this treacherous new terrain? The stakes were higher than she'd ever imagined, and the question lingered: would she reclaim her family's dreams, or would she watch it fray away, piece by piece? A palpable tension loomed, and in that moment, everything changed. Betty's fingers trembled as she held the envelope, its weight palpable against her palms. The world in her living room dimmed, the laughter of her grandchildren faded into a distant echo. Each booming heartbeat resonated with that one word echoed by Lisa, a word that now had the power to change everything: eviction. "Mom," Mike's voice pierced through the fog. He approached her with a mix of concern and confusion painted across his features. "What is going on?" Betty held his gaze, the resolve hardening within her. This wasn't just about the notice, this was about the fabric of familial trust that had been buried under the rubble of Lisa's revelations. "This is not what we're going to be forced into today," she declared, her voice steadier than she felt. It was now or never to confront the issue head-on, to gather the fragmented remnants of her family amidst this upheaval. "Betty, do you want to explain?" Lisa asked, a quiver in her tone betraying the bravado she attempted to muster. "Explain? Oh, Lisa, I think you've done well enough with your revelation." The fire ignited within Betty, a determination fueled by years of hard work and love. "I've put everything into this home, into our family. How dare you make this a matter of legalities?" The faces of her family shifted from suspicion to shock, concern knitting their brows. For a moment, she was lost in their expressions, a web of loyalty tangled with dread. Yet beneath the surface, another feeling flickered in Betty's heart. Resistance bubbled up within her, accompanied by the realization that she couldn't allow this document to define her worth or her family's future. "How did we get here?" she continued, her voice softer but firm, forcing herself to connect with Lisa through shared history. "You've been part of this family for years. Have I not treated you like my own daughter?" Lisa looked down, shame etching deeper lines on her brow. Betty noticed a fleeting moment of vulnerability in her daughter-in-law. Perhaps this was about more than just an eviction notice. Perhaps it had roots buried deeper in unresolved tensions, old ways of thinking that were keeping them apart. Tension gripped the room as Mike moved closer, trying to mediate. "Mom, I know this is tough for you, but you're right. We need to talk about this. What are the options?" A surge of hope emerged inside Betty. Discussion, real, honest dialogue would be the first step. This could be their opportunity to confront the underlying fractures in their relations. "We figure out a solution together," she suggested, her heart racing with resolve. "This isn't just about me, it's about all of us. It's a family home, and we cannot throw that away so easily." Lisa peeked up, her eyes revealing something akin to regret mixed with introspection. Betty sensed that they were on the cusp of a breakthrough. Perhaps this was a moment of reckoning for both of them. "I don't want to lose this place," Lisa began hesitantly, her vulnerability emerging from behind her defensive armor. "But it's also been difficult for me, living here under the shadow of everything you've built. I'm not trying to attack your life's work, I just want my own." Betty's heart softened at the raw honesty. The layers of Lisa's ambition were peeling back, revealing a young woman striving for her identity. "Let us work on this together," Betty responded, determination merging with empathy. "You have so much to offer. Perhaps this could become a stepping stone to something greater for us both." A flicker of understanding shone in Lisa's eyes. Betty took a deep breath, feeling the ground beneath her stabilize. This shared struggle could birth new opportunities, a chance to redefine their roles and relationships. The vibrant chaos of family laughter settled back into the room, but it was a different kind of energy now, one buzzing with potential rather than despair. They had awakened a dialogue that had long been dormant. Both women could emerge stronger, yet as the festive music resumed, a quiet realization encroached Betty's consciousness. The complexity of family would not unravel overnight. Dealing with Lisa might open doors, but what about Mike? His allegiance hung delicately in the balance. With resolve forming in her heart, Betty questioned how far she would have to go to reclaim not just her home, but the essence of family itself. What if this newfound clarity was merely the beginning of a daunting path ahead? As they all gathered around the cake once more, the question hovered palpably in the air. What would she discover about her family and herself in the days to come? The winds of change were stirring, and Betty was ready to confront whatever awaited her. The sun emerged cautiously the next morning, casting soft light through the kitchen window where Betty sat, fingers wrapped around her cup of coffee. The steam swirled up into the air, becoming an almost tangible representation of the confusion still coiling within her. Her heart was still pounding with the remnants of their last conversation. Mike and Lisa had retreated to their respective corners, but how they dealt with the multitudes of emotions would soon dictate the atmosphere of their home. Determined to steer her family back into the fold, Betty initiated a dialogue. The taste of bitterness from last night lingered on her tongue. "We need a plan," she muttered under her breath, coaxing the words into a clearer focus. She wanted to create a shared sense of purpose, a goal that could steer them away from the deep-rooted conflict simmering just beneath the surface. She pulled out her notepad, numbered the options she could think of, talking through finances, brainstorming career aspirations for Lisa, even consulting a financial advisor. Each item represented a thread she might tug to weave a new fabric of family support. With each stroke of the pen, Betty felt a flicker of hope ignite against the chaos. If she could ignite a sense of collective agency, perhaps they could alter their troubled trajectory. The sound of footsteps disrupted her thoughts. Mike entered, his brows furrowed, an expression of heavy contemplation marking his features. "Mom," he said quietly, reluctance hanging in the air like a thick fog. "I think we need to talk about what Lisa said. She feels overshadowed. I mean, you've always been the strong one, the provider. Maybe she has been feeling like she doesn't have a solid footing here." Betty felt a pang of discomfort sting her heart. "I've worked for years to build this home. I've sacrificed so much. And now, it seems that my efforts don't amount to anything for her." Mike put his hands on the table and leaned slightly forward. "It's not that simple. I think there is something valuable in what she is saying. What if she is trying to carve out her place in the world, but it's being met with a wall? Couldn't that be something worth recognizing?" Deep-rooted emotions stirred within her: anger, confusion, yes, but also a growing awareness of vulnerability. Listening to Mike's perspective sparked something inside. Perhaps they had neglected to recognize Lisa's struggle, mistaking it as aggression toward Betty's achievements rather than the cry for autonomy it truly represented. "What do we want our future to look like?" Betty questioned, her voice stronger now, laced with purpose. "This home has been our refuge, Mike, constantly being the foundation. It's exhausting." Mike straightened, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. "What if we held a family meeting? Really dive into the issues, explore Lisa's ideas, and find ways we can all feel empowered here? Working collaboratively might help us emerge stronger, redefine roles rather than fight over them." Betty felt the weight of his suggestion settle within her. The thought of constructing a family meeting triggered both apprehension and excitement. It opened a door to uncertainty but also held the promise of resolution. As she discussed the meeting with him, Betty sensed her own perspective shifting. It wasn't enough for her to cling to her established authority, she needed to empower others while still carving out her own. The realization struck her acutely: this was a chance for her personal development to intertwine with her family's. However, as she stepped outside her comfort zone, the looming truth pressed at the edges of her mind. Was she ready to sacrifice her need for control? To institutionalize change within her family that she had carefully constructed? That very tension lingered still, aching for resolution. As she sat down to draft the outline of the meeting, her phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. The words "Can we talk?" glared at her like a neon sign, beckoning her to confront not just the conflict with her daughter-in-law but her own inherent perceptions of power and family dynamics. The moment of truth for them all was approaching. Would she have the courage to face it? The soft hum of the morning melded seamlessly into Betty's thoughts as she stared at the bold message on her phone screen. Can we talk? Lisa's request felt both like a lifeline and an impending storm. What had once been a whisper of tension now demanded her full attention. Taking a deep breath, she responded cautiously, suggesting they meet after lunch. A few short hours felt like a lifetime, stretching with anticipation and dread. With each attempt to focus on her to-do list, her mind spiraled back to all the moments leading up to this confrontation. As the clock ticked toward noon, Betty felt the familiar prick of vulnerability settle into her chest. She was stepping into uncharted territory, leaving behind her protective cocoon built from years of being the one in control. What if the discussion devolved into conflict? What if it unraveled her carefully curated perception of family? Yet, buried beneath the fear was a flickering determination, a desire not just for resolution but for growth. In preparation, she reviewed the outline of the family meeting she'd jotted down earlier, filling it in with deeper thoughts. They needed not only to acknowledge struggles but also to explore aspirations. With concrete topics laid out: career paths for Lisa, financial independence, and mutual support, she hoped to steer the conversation toward empowerment. The moment finally arrived. Lisa stood at the door, her hands jammed nervously into her pockets, uncertainty lacing the air between them. Betty welcomed her in, and as they settled onto the worn couch, Betty felt the tension pulse between them. Thanks for agreeing to talk, Lisa began, her voice unsteady. I've been feeling lost for a while now. I want to make my own choices without feeling like I'm stepping on your toes. Betty's heart leapt at the sincerity in Lisa's gaze. It struck her how much both women were navigating their own insecurities, yet desperately craving validation. I understand, Betty replied slowly, choosing her words as if they were fragile glass. It's important for you to find your footing. I recognize that I've been dominating, and I didn't even see it. Lisa nodded, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. There's just so much pressure at work, and then coming home feels like I'm living in your shadow. Each revelation peeled back layers of isolation that had built up over time, revealing emotions they both had buried in silence. Betty felt a surge of empathy wash over her, mingling with the unexpected urge to take a step back. It was time to redefine what family support meant: to listen without judgment, to inspire without overshadowing. I've been working on this plan for a family meeting, she offered, gesturing toward her notepad. I think we can brainstorm ways we can all support one another while still doing our own things. Your voice matters here. As the conversation stretched into newfound territory, they discussed aspirations, dreams, and every hesitant thought that had previously been cloaked in silence. It was in this exchange that Betty noticed the shift, the subtle empowerment creeping into Lisa's voice, the way her stuttered sentences evolved into confident declarations. But just as hope swelled to encompass them both, an unsettling thought pierced through Betty's burgeoning optimism. What if Lisa's discontent stemmed from something deeper, other than merely feeling overshadowed? The unease nagged at her, whispering that this conversation might just be the beginning of a larger revelation. Suddenly, Lisa's phone buzzed on the table, drawing both their attention to the screen. I have to take this, she said, a slight tremble in her voice. As she stepped away to answer, Betty caught a glimpse of the text notification, something that resembled an eviction notice. With her heart racing, a chilling question swept through her mind. What could this mean for their family? Would the discussions they had just opened up be erased in the shadow of this looming crisis? Feeling like she was teetering on a precipice, she knew the path ahead might reshape everything. They had begun to construct together. The next step would reveal whether their newfound understanding could withstand the complications of real life. As Lisa ended her call and turned back toward Betty, confusion mottled her face, unable to mask the fear brewing beneath the surface. The moment of truth was upon them. What would happen next? The seconds stretched between them like miles as Lisa stood frozen, the phone slipping from her grasp onto the worn rug. Panic flared in her eyes, and Betty felt an overwhelming surge of maternal instinct wash over her. They had just begun to untangle the knots of their relationship, and now they faced a new threat that could rip it all apart. Lisa, Betty said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. What did they say? Lisa shook her head, her brows knitting together. It doesn't matter, she insisted, swallowing hard, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. I can't even think right now. That vulnerability shifted something within Betty. She recognized this wasn't merely about an eviction notice, it was about fear and the daunting feeling of instability. Let's take a breath, Betty suggested, offering her daughter a reassuring nod. You know you're not alone in this. As they settled once more into the cramped space of the couch, Betty was acutely aware of the weight of her daughter's unspoken worries. She thought back to the afternoon, moments ago infused with promise, now twisted into uncertainty. I'm here for you, she continued, her resolve forming quickly. What can we do together to tackle this? Lisa's eyes fell to her lap, the flickering light of anxiety just beneath the surface. I was just getting used to being independent, Mom. And now? I just feel lost. I can't handle this. Betty considered her daughter's words, realizing that Lisa's vulnerability opened a doorway for them both. Finding your way isn't about battling through everything alone, she said, her voice dropping to one of deep sincerity. We're family, and we'll face this challenge together. With a determined nod, Lisa scooted forward, her shoulders straightening slightly. I talked to my supervisor about a raise, hoping it would help with expenses, she admitted, Italian greyhounds lurking in the back of her mind as they often did. But now? It just seems so pointless. That ignited a flicker within Betty. It's not pointless, Lisa. It's a step toward independence. You're building towards something significant, and even if it feels daunting, you've got plans in place. As she spoke, encouraged by the newfound bond developing beneath layers of insecurity, Betty realized this was about more than just offering support. They could turn this conversation into an action plan. Let us list out everything. Your raise prospects, the unexpected financial burdens, even what you can do right now. Being proactive offered a sense of control that both women desperately needed. They began jotting down ideas, possible budget adjustments, job openings, financial advisors to consult. Each suggestion inched them closer not just to a solution, but to collaboration and uncharted territory of joint effort and shared vulnerability. As they carved out a tangible strategy, something shifted internally for Betty. Empowerment could sprout from uncertainty. She was not merely a safety net, she could also be a guide. This realization rekindled her determination to redefine her role, to allow Lisa to assert herself without holding on too tightly. However, beneath the surface healing, anxiety coiled like a snake waiting to strike. Betty knew they had only begun to address the issues surrounding Lisa's eviction and the tidal wave of emotions attached to it. Was this financial setback a larger symptom of something else? Could it unravel the bond that they so eagerly sought to strengthen? With each new plan, Betty felt buoyed by the conviction that they could learn from these struggles. Yet questions loomed large. Could their newfound understanding withstand impending storms? Would they become engrossed in fear or emerge emboldened by resolve? Mom? Lisa's hesitant voice pulled her from the web of thoughts. Can we really handle this? The gravity of the question hung dangerously in the air. Betty took a deep breath, searching her own heart for reassurance. Yes, she replied, firm but gentle, her resolve seeping through. We won't let anything break what we've started to build here. As they organized their ideas, the alarm of an unanswered phone buzzed again, this time from Betty's own pocket. She fished it out curiously, eyes widening as she read the message, a text from her own boss about a last-minute meeting concerning her next promotion. The timing felt ripe with significance, a choice point of its own. With that, she flicked her gaze back to Lisa, confidence wavering momentarily, yet the path forward suddenly felt layered with promise. This could change everything, she whispered to herself. But as the words left her lips, she realized that for both of them, the toughest conversations were yet to come. What was she willing to sacrifice for her ambitions? And for Lisa, how far would she go to grasp her own choices? The moment was alive with questions, their future uncertain, and the tension electrifying. Little did they know that the struggle would not just shape their paths but reveal the confluences of aspiration and fear that lay within each of them. Sitting across from Lisa, Betty felt a ripple of uncertainty flooding her mind. The impending promotion loomed large, a shiny lure dangling before her as she tried to reconcile her aspirations with her role as a supportive mother. She could sense the tightrope she was walking. Each step into the unknown threatened to unravel the delicate balance they had just begun to cultivate. Lisa sighed, her thoughts fresh with worries. Sometimes I wonder if I'm meant to do more than this job. It feels so small. The words wrapped around them in a heavy silence, their weight palpable in the air. Betty's heart ached, recognizing her daughter's broader ambitions. It's not a small job if it's a step toward where you want to be, she responded, carefully measuring her tone. This could be an opportunity to gather momentum. Use the frustration, Lisa. Maybe, Lisa replied, a mixture of doubt and hope echoing in her tone. But what if it's just another dead end? Betty furrowed her brow, a flash of understanding igniting her thoughts. The idea of dead ends is terrifying. But what if, instead of thinking about failure, we focus on skills you want to develop? What's the worst that could happen if you pitched some of your ideas at work? Pitch my ideas? Lisa raised her eyebrows, skepticism mingling with intrigue. Yes. What if you presented a solution for the financial concerns your team is facing? Or a project that showcases your creativity? The words flowed easier now, sparking an energy in Betty. You've got ideas worth sharing, and if they don't get accepted, it's not a failure. It's feedback, a stepping stone. The fire in Lisa's eyes wavered, faltering between apprehension and eager anticipation. I guess that could work. But what if my boss dismisses me? Then you'll know it's not the right environment for your growth. At least you'll have clarity, Betty replied, her steadfast resolve helping to ground them both. Define your worth by what you create, not by others' perceptions. Maybe I just need to muster the courage, Lisa said slowly, her fingers tentatively tracing patterns on the fabric of the couch. And what about you, Mom? What are you going to do with your promotion? The question hit Betty hard. Her pulse quickened as she found the words stuck in her throat. She had always craved recognition in her career, feeling overlooked in a field dominated by younger voices. But what was this promotion going to cost her? I want to embrace this opportunity wholeheartedly, she finally said, her voice steadying. But I also want to ensure that this doesn't come at the expense of our relationship. I've learned that success doesn't mean much if it's a lonely accomplishment. Can you honestly balance it all? Lisa's bright eyes met her mother's, searching for genuine clarity. I can try to, Betty replied, a frown creasing her forehead as she contemplated the instability that loomed ahead. But it will require dedication and honesty with myself. I'll have to navigate these treacherous waters with intention. Silence settled between them again, reflecting both women's uncertainties. The path forward was daunting, full of unknowns that echoed their insecurities. Betty wanted to instill a sense of possibility in her daughter, yet feared she was teetering on the brink herself. Navigating the world alone had never been her strength. Suddenly, Lisa's phone chimed, jolting both of them upright. The message illuminated the screen with another stark reality, an invitation to consider a more stable living arrangement, the kind meant for the ambitious yet practical individual. That could be a good place to start, Betty encouraged, her heart racing as she witnessed Lisa's flickering desire. Whether it's a job or your living situation, consider it the first step. But what if I'm not up for the challenge? Lisa mused, her voice catching an undercurrent of worry. What if you are? Echoing in her mind was the assurance she yearned for as a mother. This moment could define them both. Ambitions were intertwined now, a shared tapestry made of risk and resolve, with a buoyant sense of purpose unfurling. They leaned in, ready to embrace the next challenge. Their visions had collided, entwined by the shadows of their fears. Just as hope began to take root within the space between them, another message beeped. Betty pulled her phone from her pocket. This time, it was a reminder for a meeting that felt like it could alter everything, an offer that dawned like dawn on a cresting horizon, beautiful yet daunting. As she read the words, a deep conflict pooled in her stomach. The stakes were rising, and the clarity she sought was obscured once again. Facing Lisa, she whispered, I think the tides are changing. We might be forced to confront our truths sooner than we realize. The thrill of decision hung in the air, electric and raw. They could embrace the unknown, or they could let it swallow them whole. How far would they venture? Would they harness their strengths, or spiral back into fear? Betty paced the small kitchen, the familiar smell of coffee mingling with the tension lingering in the air. She felt the weight of her responsibilities pressing down on her shoulders, an unsettling reminder of the meeting waiting for her later that morning. The words from her last conversation with Lisa echoed in her mind, inspiring both dread and a flicker of resolve. She had spent so long navigating her career on autopilot, so caught up in the grind that she hadn't given herself permission to openly address what was at stake. As the kettle hissed, her eyes drifted to the calendar hanging on the wall, its marked dates a silent witness to her ongoing struggle. Today was more than just another day, it was her chance to take control, to propel herself forward. The previous whispers of her ambitions clawed at her, mingling with fear. Was this the day she finally stepped into the light, or merely another step into darkness? With a long, determined breath, she poured her coffee, savoring the ritual. Each sip coaxed her into a realm of quiet contemplation, a momentary escape from the upcoming confrontation. She set her mug down firmly and glanced out of the window. The sky was overcast, the clouds threatening rain, mirroring the tumult within her. In the solitude, Betty wrestled with conflicting emotions. On one hand, the promotion could redefine her career, potentially providing the recognition and respect she craved. But at what cost? Was she truly ready to immerse herself in the demands that came with it? She recalled the initial flicker of certainty as she assured Lisa about using their frustrations as chances to grow. Could she apply that same logic to her life? Determined to frame her insecurities as opportunities, she grabbed a notepad and started jotting down the key points she wanted to address during the meeting. Each bullet point reflected not just her professional aspirations but also the essence of who she was. Drawing on her past experiences and the revelations about her own worth, Betty began to craft a narrative of resilience. As she wrote, another thought crossed her mind: the conversations with Lisa. Their exchange had not just helped her daughter, it had awakened something dormant within her. Lisa was right. Each step forward demanded courage and the willingness to confront the fears that held them hostage. Wasn't it time she embraced that challenge herself? The phone buzzed again, breaking her train of thought. It was another reminder of her impending meeting, but a flicker of determination sparked within her. This was her moment to be the example for Lisa. She had always believed in leading with authenticity. Now was the time to live it. As she finished her notes, a surge of confidence coursed through her veins. The worries still lingered, but the prospect of clarity loomed larger. She envisioned stepping into that conference room, where she would articulate her ideas and assert her worth, not just for herself, but as a beacon for her daughter. Betty stopped abruptly as a new realization struck her. This promotion was not merely an opportunity for advancement, it was a chance to reshape the definition of success for both her and Lisa. What if she could inspire her daughter to see that taking risks, however terrifying, could lead to unexpected rewards? With her thoughts swirling and her heart pounding, she answered the nagging question that floated at the back of her mind. What if this meeting became the catalyst for a new journey? The air thickened with anticipation as she gathered her materials, ready to face the unknown. As she slid on her coat, Betty felt resilient, ready to embrace whatever awaited her on the other side of that meeting room door. But just before leaving, she hesitated, a new message lighting up her phone screen. Flashing on the display was a simple text from Lisa: "Mom, can we talk? I really need your advice, and it's important." The urgency in Lisa's words sent a shiver down her spine. A sense of impending collision between their quests for growth electrified the atmosphere. What new challenges lay ahead for both of them? Betty took one last look in the mirror, straightened her posture, and steeled herself for the crossroads awaiting them. Little did she know, they were about to confront the high stakes of their individual aspirations, and how those aspirations intertwined in ways neither of them could anticipate. Betty stepped out into the drab outside world, the damp air clinging to her skin. She fought the storm brewing inside her, already imagining the meeting room stripped of emotion, a neutral environment where ambition could war with anxiety. Yet, with every step toward her office, she felt the suffocating grip of disquiet loosen, replaced by a pulse of purpose. She was ready to confront not just her colleagues but also the shadow of doubt that had overshadowed her for years. Arriving at the office building, she caught a glimpse of herself in the glass doors. The reflection felt foreign, determined yet vulnerable. She smoothed her coat, feeling the fabric against her fingers. It symbolized her professional armor. Behind that facade lay the woman who once hesitated to speak up. This was the moment she intended to reclaim her voice, however unsteady it might be. Inside, the bustling energy of her colleagues surrounded her, a stark reminder of the competitive jungle that lay ahead. Faces she recognized melded into the background noise, the murmur of updates and casual exchanges a heavy soundtrack to her pause. She took a deep breath and focused on those notes she had prepared, breathing life into the bullets of her plan. Each point represented her journey, a timeline of experiences that had molded her into the leader she longed to become. As she walked to the conference room, doubt slithered back in. What if her colleagues dismissed her insights? What if they saw only the woman defined by her years of self-doubt? She shook her head, dispelling the negativity. This wasn't the time for self-recrimination. She recalled the words of encouragement she had imparted to Lisa, and suddenly they became her own lifelines. It was time to walk the talk. The door swung open, and she was met with the faces of upper management, along with her peers, seated around the gleaming table. The flickering fluorescent lights bore down on her, and sweat began to bead on her forehead. But it was in that moment that she reminded herself, she wasn't just there for approval, she was there to assert herself, to own her journey. She took her place at the front, her hands gripping the edge of the table. The meeting commenced. Voices flowed around her, discussing past projects, numerical successes, and future goals. When her moment arrived, she found herself staring down the gathering storm of judgment and expectation. A knot twisted in her stomach, but she pressed forward, driven by an unwavering realization. She had earned the space to speak. As she articulated her vision, focusing on key business strategies intertwined with personal growth, she noticed the rapt attention of her colleagues, their expressions shifting from indifference to intrigue. Each point was a thread woven from years of experience, spent learning from failures and victories alike. She felt a shift, not only in the room but within herself. Her voice became clearer, more confident, as she integrated what she had learned from Lisa about vulnerability and authenticity, but just as she began to feel the momentum swell, the conversation took an unexpected turn. A colleague proposed an alternative strategy, one that undermined her ideas. The suggestion resonated in the room, sparking an intense discussion that left her momentarily breathless. She could feel a wave of disbelief wash over her, a feeling of being sidelined and dismissed. Yet, a resolve surged through her once again. What if she used this moment to showcase her adaptability? Instead of recoiling, she chose to engage, effectively advocating for her vision while respecting their critique. Isn't this what growth exemplifies? To embrace challenge instead of retreating in fear? She smiled, ready to counter the suggestion not with defensiveness but with collaborative strength. As the conversation swirled and hearts began to shift, Betty realized that every challenge she faced could be repurposed into an opportunity for clarity, connection, and conviction. She could emerge stronger, not just in this meeting but in her relationship with Lisa and herself. The meeting took on a life of its own, evolving into something more than a mere evaluation of promotions. It was a test of self-discovery and fortitude. Yet, just as she felt the tide of conversation turning in her favor, another message flashed on her phone. This time, it was from Lisa again. "Are you okay? I really need to speak to you now. It's about your meeting." The urgency of those words sent another shiver down her spine. What could possibly be pressing enough to disrupt the moment of revelation Betty found herself in? Was it about something personal, or could it intertwine with her professional journey in ways she hadn't anticipated? The tension around her coalesced into a new challenge she was unprepared for, tightening her sense of urgency and anticipation. The meeting buzzed with newfound energy, the air thick with anticipation as colleagues shifted, ready to challenge norms and engage in this evolving dialogue. Betty fought the urge to check her phone again, focusing instead on the dynamic unfolding in front of her, infused with potential. She could feel the momentum, a wave of collective mindfulness as they deliberated with her rather than against her. Each voice added to the kaleidoscope of opinions, revealing layers of complexity that Betty hadn't anticipated, but Lisa's urgent message pulsed in her mind like an electric current. The anxiety seeped into her composure, an intrusive reminder of her personal turmoil lurking beneath the surface. What did Lisa need to reveal? Would it pull her away from this moment of professional triumph, or, perhaps, would it elevate her understanding of the larger picture? "Betty, what are your thoughts on this approach?" The voice of Daniel, her manager, jolted her back to the room. His expression was curious, a blend of scrutiny and investment. Heart racing, she nodded and rallied. "I think it's essential to recognize the elements of collaboration here. Merging our perspectives can lead to a more robust strategy." As she spoke, she became acutely aware of the growing respect in the room. She was not the girl who would hide behind hesitation. Each word resonated with authenticity and strength. Yet, with every affirmation sewn into the fabric of her argument, the thumb anchoring her phone tightened at her side. The room erupted into a whirlwind of ideas, the discussions buzzing, but the thought of collapse whispered at her edges. Each person's voice added weight, but each question from Daniel felt sharp, piercing. "And what are the potential risks of this strategy?" Betty paused. In the turmoil of engagement, she had not anticipated the questions that would test the foundations of her proposal. Vulnerability threatened to undo her, yet she squared her shoulders. Every great venture involves risk. However, should we not see this as a chance to innovate? Without risk, stagnation is inevitable. Nods filled the room, she connected with them. The stakes were rising, her confidence soaring. Yet, Lisa's unspoken urgency gnawed at her. The dialogue pressed on, weaving intricate patterns of debate and discourse. She actively steered the conversation, drawing from her expertise and personal revelations. It was a tightly wrapped gift of experience, one that she had shied away from sharing just a few months prior. "Betty's right," chimed in Carla, a longtime colleague, breaking through with a smile. "We need to take that leap. Our growth cannot be chained to the fear of failure." Something warm enveloped Betty, the recognition from her peers. For years, she had viewed herself as the outsider looking in, but there she stood, igniting sparks of connection among her colleagues, illuminating the shadows of doubt. However, the buzz and applause of validation soon faded as another text from Lisa popped up, this one more dire. "You're going to want to sit down for this. I'm scared for you." The words clawed at her thoughts, each dreaded syllable shimmering like a beacon of impending crisis. "Does anyone have any final thoughts?" Daniel asked, as the room hovered on the brink of agreement. Betty's heart raced, not with the thrill of victory but with an impeding sense of dread. "Actually, I'll need to address something first," she heard herself say, the words barely a whisper. All eyes turned toward her, and a volley of expectations filled the silence. Was she ready to face whatever news Lisa had to deliver? Could the intimacy of her personal life be intertwined with this moment of professional clarity? The duality pulled her mind in different directions, leading her to an intersection where both worlds collided, demanding her attention. "Actually, before we finalize anything," she steadied her voice, "thinking about Lisa, I need to excuse myself for a moment." As she exited the room, the bustling constancy of her colleagues faded, replaced by the pounding of her heart urging her to regain control. How would she respond to whatever awaited her on the other side of her phone? She grasped her phone tightly, desperate to confront this next set of revelations. This was her moment, not just for professional validation but for personal reckoning, reclaiming every ounce of her strength. The moment weighed heavily as she tapped the screen. What could possibly be worse than the storms she had just tumultuously navigated through? The content was about to unfold, but would she have the strength to face it? "Betty, are you there?" Lisa's voice on the phone was strained, and that alone quickened the urgency. "Tell me," she whispered, her breath caught, knowing this might not just change her day but alter the course of her journey altogether. The storm wasn't just brewing, it was here, ready to test every fiber of her resolve. The gravity of the moment weighed heavily on Betty as she listened intently. Lisa's voice trembled, stirring a mix of fear and determination. "I received another eviction notice for a different property," Lisa confessed, her breath hitching. "They're threatening to make us leave, regardless of my lease. I don't know how to grapple with this while trying to find my footing." In that instant, the personal stakes elevated. A maternal instinct surged through Betty, intertwining with the professional resolve she had been cultivating. This wasn't merely a matter of justice anymore. It was a battle against the relentless tides of insecurity threatening her family's unity. "Lisa," Betty said, her voice steady with newfound conviction, "what we're facing isn't just a financial burden. It's a call to redefine what home means to us as a family. We've weathered storms before. We can tackle this together." For the first time in a long while, Betty felt a surge of clarity. This was the moment to transform not just her professional life but the essence of their familial ties. "Let me help you, and after that, we will regroup and face whatever may come." After ending the call, Betty's heart raced with determination. She returned to the conference room brimming with fresh insights, armed not just with intentions but a clarified purpose. "I have to make my personal boundaries align with my ambitions," she thought, propelling herself forward. Her colleagues looked expectantly her way, and she felt the excitement of momentum build within her once again. "Let's discuss the viability of using our current resources to address our financial obligations, as well as Lisa's concerns. It exists beyond just numbers. We're discussing lives affected by our decisions." Her clear articulation of care for her family resonated with her colleagues, gaining traction in their discussions. They tossed around ideas related to community support, innovative strategies, and budgeting, a tapestry woven from vitality and resilience, mirroring Betty's evolving self. By the end of the meeting, something remarkable emerged. Betty had not only championed her ideas, she had cultivated newfound respect. A unanimous agreement materialized to support her department's ambitions with a fundraiser aimed at creating emergency financial resources for employees facing unexpected housing threats. They recognized this initiative as a lifeline for all staff, not just as a reflection of Betty's personal journey. The aura of collaboration lingered, igniting a fire in her heart. This is what connection feels like, she thought. The veil of isolation had lifted, vulnerability was now coalescing into strength. As her colleagues gathered around the table, expressing thanks and admiration for her insights, she felt a flicker of pride, something she had never allowed herself to embrace fully before. She had conquered her fears by diving into uncharted waters, illustrating that true leadership stemmed from authenticity rather than authority. Leaving the conference room, her phone buzzed once again, lighting up her face with a familiar and welcomed urgency. The message was from Lisa. "Mom, I'm so proud of you. Let us work together on this, and not only that eviction, but everything else. We can redefine what we want." That was the moment. The palpable connection between them had deepened, transforming into a shared commitment toward independence and strength, underlaid with mutual support. The challenges ahead were still daunting, but as Betty looked back one last time into the conference room, she saw more than just colleagues. She saw a community of allies, each forging resilient paths just as she and Lisa were seeking to do. Her heart felt lightened. She had achieved a foothold that merged personal and professional goals and acknowledged that fortifying familial ties would be the foundation of her ongoing success. Reclaiming the virtues of connection both at work and home solidified her sense of achievement. Betty stepped into the sunlight, her mind swirling not with dread but with possibility, convinced that what awaited her would only elevate her family's journey even further. Now was the time to conquer the narrative of her life. Time to embrace what lay ahead, armed with the tools of leadership she had cultivated within. Today would be her launchpad. Betty would embrace all that she had become and all she could yet achieve. If you felt the weight of this journey, you need to subscribe now to witness more powerful stories like Betty's. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and bring forth more inspiring tales of transformation. Comment your thoughts and reactions about Betty's remarkable turnaround and share your theories about what's next. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who also need to see this enlightening conclusion. Your engagement can inspire someone else to embark on their path of growth.